The birth of tyranny. The Illuminati. When you talk about tracing the origin of an organization which is controlling the destiny of the world, it's obvious that you have to start at a period which would allow a movement of this magnitude, time to ferment. Changes like the ones which have, and are occurring do not take place overnight. We are dealing with a group which must have been growing for a long period of time, in order to obtain the power and influence necessary to achieve the global control now being exercised. When you think of it in that context, there is such a group, the Illuminati. The leader of the Illuminati was a man named Dr. Adam Weishaupt, who was born on February 6, 1748, the son of a Jewish rabbi. When his father died in 1753, he was converted to Catholicism by Baron Johann Adam Ixtott, who turned the early training of the boy over to the Jesuits. Ixtott, in 1742, had been appointed by the Jesuits to be the curator of the university in order to reorganize it. He had retired in 1765, but still controlled its policies. Although Weishaupt later became a priest, he developed a distinct hatred for the Jesuits, and became an atheist. Given access to the private library of Ixtott, his godfather, the young man became interested in the works of the French philosophers, and studied law, economics, politics, and history. One such philosopher, Voltaire, 1694 to 1778, a revolutionary who held liberal religious views, had written in a letter to King Frederick II, the Great, a Mason, lastly, when the whole body of the church should be sufficiently weakened and infidelity strong enough, the final blow is to be dealt by the sword of open, relentless persecution. A reign of terror is to be spread over the whole earth, and continue while a Christian should be found obstinate enough to adhere to Christianity. It is believed that Weishaupt got his ideas concerning the destruction of the church from Voltaire's writings. He studied in France, where he met Robespierre, who later led the French Revolution, and became friends with a few people in the French royal court. It is believed that through these contacts, he was introduced to Satanism. He graduated from the Bavarian University in Ingolstadt, Germany in 1768. He served 4 years as a tutor until he was promoted to assistant instructor. In 1770, he was chosen by Mayer Amschel Rothschild to develop an organization that he could use. In 1772, Weishaupt was made professor of civil law. In 1773, he was made professor of canon law, a post which had been held by the Jesuits for 90 years. They had founded most of the universities, and kept strict control of them in order to eliminate Protestant influence. In 1773, Weishaupt got married, against the wishes of Ixtott, who denounced him. 2 years later, at the age of 27, he was made dean of the Faculty of Law. The Jesuits, worried about his quick progression, tried to thwart his influence by secretly plotting against him, and his liberal thinking. Not wanting to become a martyr for his free-thinking ideas, he began focusing on establishing his organization. To confuse his detractors, he based the organizational structure on the one used by the Jesuits. However, his intention was to have a secret coalition of liberalism. He studied the anti-Christian doctrines of the Manichaeans, whose teachings revolved around astrology, medicine, and magic. He had been indoctrinated into Egyptian occult practices by an unknown merchant named Kolmer, from Jutland, the area around the border of Denmark and West Germany, who had been traveling around Europe since 1771. He studied the power of the Eleusinian mysteries and the influence exerted by the secret cult of the Pythagoreans. Pythagoras was a 6th century BC philosopher who taught that men and women should combine their belongings, which became the basic philosophy behind communism. Weishaupt also studied the teachings of the Essenes, and acquired copies of the Kabbalah, the Major Key of Solomon, and the Lesser Key of Solomon, which revealed how to conjure up demons and perform occult rituals. He studied the various Masonic writings after meeting a Protestant Freemason from Hanover. At first he thought about creating a superior Masonic-like organization that would be made up of men possessing superior abilities in all fields, but concluded that Masonry was too open. Weishaupt was instructed by the Rothschild, who were also said to be Satanists, to leave the Catholic Church, and unite all the different occult groups. He created the coven known as the Golden Dawn, which, to this day, is alleged to be the Rothschild private coven. Weishaupt spent 5 years working out a plan through which all of his ideas could be reduced to a single system which would be used to fight the oppression of religion, thereby loosening social ties. He wanted to replace Christianity with a religion of reason. An initial idea was to form an organization comprised of schools of wisdom, whose goal was to make of the human race one good and happy family. They were to strive for the perfection of morals, so he thought about naming the group the Perfectibilists, but it lacked the air of mystery and intrigue that he sought. In 1774, he published a fictitious article called Sidoniae Apollinaris Fragment, which he said was to prepare the people for the doctrine of reason. Weishaupt wrote, "Princes and nations will disappear without violence from the earth. The human race will then become one family, and the world will be the dwelling of rational men." He wrote of their aims, to make the perfecting of reasoning powers interesting to mankind, to spread the knowledge of sentiments, both humane and social, to check wicked inclinations, to stand up for suffering and oppressed virtue, to facilitate the acquirement of knowledge and science. On May 1, 1776, under the direction of the newly formed House of Rothschild, and Wesley, Moses, Mendelssohn, and the bankers, Itzig, Friedlander, and Meyer, who instigated the American Revolution to weaken Great Britain, Weishaupt founded the ancient Illuminated Seers of Bavaria, which became known as the Order of the Illuminati. Weishaupt said that the name was derived from Luciferian teachings, and means, holders of the light. In Latin, it means, the enlightened ones. In layman's terms, it means to illuminate, or to give light. It refers to someone who is enlightened, spiritually and intellectually. Satan, when he was an angel, was known as Lucifer, the bearer of light, and being that the group's name evolved from this, we can see the underlying nature of its goals. In addition, May 1st was a great day for all communist nations, where it was known as May Day, and it is also known as a special day to witches. There were some earlier groups, with similar names, such as a group known as the Illuminated Ones, which was founded by Joachim of Florus in the 11th century, who taught a primitive, supposedly Christian doctrine of poverty and equality. The Roshaniya, or Illuminated Ones, which was influenced by an earlier group known as the Eastern Ismailites, after Ishmael, the son of Hafer. Bataniye, internal or secret, or just by their nickname, the Assassins, was a group in Afghanistan during the 16th century, who sought the illumination from the Supreme Being, who wanted a class of perfect men and women. After reaching the 4th degree, Enlightened One, the initiate would receive mystical powers, and when the 8th and final degree was reached, they were told they had achieved perfection. An Afghan scholar said that their purpose was to influence people of importance to establish harmony in the world, and were devoted to fight the tyranny of the Mughals, who were the rulers of India. The group survived until the 1700s. The Alumbrados, enlightened or illuminated, was a mysterious movement in Spain during the 16th and 17th centuries that believed that when a person achieved a certain degree of perfection, they experienced a vision of God, and then entered into direct communication with the Holy Spirit. At this point the soul would enter a state of limbo, not advancing or going back. Once this level was achieved, a person didn't have to perform any good works or get involved in any religious activity, because they had received the light. Once they had received the light, they would possess superior human intelligence. Their members mainly came from Reformed Franciscans, and the Jesuits. Their unusual claims caused them to be criticized and harassed, and the Inquisition issued edicts against them in 1568, 1574, and 1623. Ignatius de Loyola, founder of the Jesuits, was put in jail for being a member. This condemnation forced the movement into France, where in 1654 they surfaced as the Illuminated Guerinites. The Illuminati was the name of an occultic German sect that existed in the 15th century that professed to possess the light received from Satan. It was also the name of an organization that was influenced by the writings of Emanuel Swedenborg, which was established in 1760 at Avignon. This Swedenborgian philosophy also produced the Illuminated Theosophists in 1766 at Paris, then later in London, but was short-lived. Although it would certainly make for a more interesting story, there is no documentation to suggest that Weishaupt's Order of the Illuminati is a continuation of any of these groups. However, whether their teachings and philosophy had an influence on him is another question. Most assuredly, there is a spiritual lineage that ties them all together. Starting with only 5 members, Weishaupt, and his inner circle his friend Colmer, Francis Dashwood of the Satanic Hellfire Club, Alphonse Donatien de Sade from whose name we get the word sadism, and Meyer Amschel Rothschild. The Illuminati wasn't fully operational until 1778. Weishaupt wrote, "The great strength of our order lies in its concealment. Let it never appear, in any place in its own name, but always covered by another name, and another occupation. None is fitter than the 3 lower degrees of Freemasonry. The public is accustomed to it, expects little from it, and therefore takes little notice of it." He also wrote, "For the order wishes to be secret, and to work in silence, for thus it is better secured from the oppression of the ruling powers, and because this secrecy gives a greater zest to the whole." The order was made up of 3 degrees, novice, minerval, and illuminated minerval. It was organized in a manner similar to Freemasonry and the Jesuits. Even though he admired the structure of the Jesuit hierarchy, he wrote that no ex-Jesuits were to be admitted, except by special permission. He wrote that they must be avoided as the plague. Their rites and ceremonies were similar to that of the Masons. Their aim, he said, was to have a one-world government, to allow the elite to govern the world, thus preventing future wars. One of their early programs was to distribute anti-religious material to criticize clerical leaders, who they saw as obstacles to social progress, and to oppose the enemies of the human race and of society. Weishaupt wrote, "How can the weak obtain protection? Only by union, but this is rare. Nothing can bring this about but hidden societies. Hidden schools of wisdom are the means which we will one day free men from their bonds. And quote. All members were required to adopt classical names. Weishaupt was called Spartacus, who had been the leader of the slave insurrection in ancient Rome. His right-hand man, Xavier von Zwock, a lawyer to Prince von Salm, was known as Cato. Nikolai, the bookseller, was Lucian. Professor Wessenreiter was Pythagoras. Canon Hertel was Marius. Marquis de Constanza was Diomedes. Massenhausen was Ajar. Baron von Schrokenstein was Mohomed, and Baron von Mengenhofen was Scylla. Their headquarters was in Munich, Germany, and known as the Grand Lodge of the Illuminati, or Lodge of the Grand Orient, codenamed Athens. Among their other 4 lodges, Ingolstadt was known as Ephesus, Heidelberg as Utica, Bavaria as Achaia, and Frankfurt was known as Thebes. The calendar was reconstructed, and the months known by names reminiscent of the Hebrew language. January was known as Dime, and February as Ben-May, etc. They dated their letters according to the Persian era, named after the king who began to rule in Persia in 632 BC, Jezdegerd. Their new year began on March 21st, which some sources say is New Year's Day for witches. In 1777, Weishaupt joined the eclectic Masonic Lodge Theodore of Good Counsel in Munich, and towards the end of 1778, he came up with the idea of merging the Illuminati and the Masons. Zwock became a Mason on November 27, 1778, and working with a brother Mason, Abbé Marati, he divulged the secret of the order. By the middle of 1779, the Munich Masonic Lodge was under the complete influence of the Illuminati. During the first 4 years, about 60 active members had been recruited by a committee known as the Insinuators, and close to 1,000 had become indirectly affiliated with the order. Soon, 3 more lodges were established. Few knew the supreme direction of the order. Only those within the inner circle, known as the Areopagite, meaning tribunal, were aware of their true purpose. To all others, Weishaupt said that he wanted a one-world government to prevent all future wars. The book World Revolution, by Nesta Webster, stated, "The art of Illuminism lay in enlisting dupes as well as adepts, and by encouraging the dreams of honest visionaries or the schemes of fanatics, by flattering the vanity of ambitious egotists, by working on unbalanced brains, or by playing on such passions as greed and power, to make men of totally divergent aims serve the secret purpose of the sect." And quote. Foolish, naive people, with money to burn, were especially welcomed. Weishaupt wrote, "These good people swell our numbers and fill our money box. Set yourselves to work. These gentlemen must be made to nibble at the bait. But let us beware of telling them our secrets. This sort of people must always be made to believe that the grade they have reached is the last." And quote. Weishaupt explained, "One must speak sometimes in one way, sometimes in another, so that our real purpose should remain impenetrable to our inferiors." And quote. And what was that purpose? It was nothing less than to win power and riches, to undermine secular or religious government, and to obtain the mastery of the world. And quote. Initiates were told that the order represented the highest ideals of the Church, that Christ was the first advocator of Illuminism, and his secret mission was to restore to men the original liberty and equality they had lost in the Garden of Eden. Weishaupt said that Christ exhorted his disciples to despise riches in order to prepare the world for the community of goods that would do away with property ownership. Weishaupt wrote to Zwock, "The most admirable thing of all is that great Protestant and Reformed theologians, Lutherans and Calvinists, who belong to our order really believe they see in it the true and genuine mind of the Christian religion." And quote. However, when one of Weishaupt's followers would reach the higher degrees, their secret was revealed. "Behold our secret, in order to destroy all Christianity, all religion, we have pretended to have the sole true religion, to deliver one day the human race from all religion." And quote. Women were also enlisted. He wrote, "There is no way of influencing men so powerful, as by means of women. These should therefore be our chief study. We should insinuate ourselves into their good opinion, give them hints of emancipation from the tyranny of public opinion, and of standing up for themselves." And quote. He also wrote, "This sex has a large part of the world in their hands." And quote. Female members were divided into 2 groups, one group of society women, to give the organization an air of respectability, and the other group who would help to satisfy those brothers who have a penchant for pleasure. And quote. The Illuminati also used monetary and sex bribery to gain control of men in high places, then blackmailed them with the threat of financial ruin, public exposure, and fear of death. Internal fighting soon developed because of Weishaupt's thirst for power. Besides that, because only nominal dues were collected, the order suffered financially. In 1780, a new member, Baron Franz Friedrich Nigg, 1752 to 1796, was recruited, and given the pseudonym of Philo. Nigg was born on October 16, 1752. He studied law at Göttingen, served in the courts of Hesse-Kassel and Weimar, and was a well-known writer of romance, poetry and philosophy. He joined the Masonic Lodge of Strict Observance, which was dedicated to the elimination of the occult sciences, which were widely practiced. Unable to do that, they were forced to accept it. Nig achieved the rank of Brother Commander, and had the title of Knight of the Swan. He assisted in the establishment of a new Masonic lodge at Hanau. Because of his developing exposure and interest in the occult, magic and alchemy, he joined the Rosicrucians, a secret organization that dated back to the 14th century, and reportedly was an occult group who participated in human sacrifice rituals. He later renounced alchemy, and devoted his studies to the development of a form of masonry that would allow man to regain the perfection they once had before the fall of Adam and Eve. His idea was to reform masonry, and he was going to make these proposals at the Congress of Wilhelmsbad. However, the Marquis of Constanza, known as one of the most notorious of the Illuminati, informed him that the Illuminati had already done that. In order to lure him, Weishaupt portrayed the order as representing the greatest advancement in science, and dedicated to philosophical advancement. Since this fell in line with Nig's thinking, he was drawn into the order. Nig was definitely a catch, because he had a talent for organization, and soon became the head of the Westphalia Circle. He was instrumental in pushing for a merger between the Masons and the Illuminati. Weishaupt wrote of him, "Philo is the master from whom to take lessons. Give me 6 men of his stamp and with them I will change the face of the universe. Philo does more than we all expected, and he is the man who alone will carry it all through." Nig was firmly supported by members of the Areopagite, who felt that Weishaupt's supreme authority should be delegated to others, and they agreed with Nig's proposed modifications for the organization. They were adopted on July 9, 1781. Nig was able to recruit the most effective propagandists, and from 1780 on, the growth of the order was very rapid because its expansion was facilitated through its affiliation with the Masonic lodges. Their goal was now to achieve their aims by splitting mankind into opposing ideologies, and for them to fight among themselves, thus weakening national governments and organized religion. An understanding was finally reached between the Masons and the Illuminati, and on December 20, 1781, a combined order was proposed, which would add to the Illuminati organization the first 3 degrees of Masonry. It wasn't until the Congress of Wilhelmsbad from July 16 to August 29, 1781, which was attended by Masons, Martinists, and representatives from other secret organizations from Europe, America and Asia, that the alliance was official. Those at the meeting were put under oath not to reveal anything. Comte de Verrou, a Mason from the Martinist Lodge at Lyons, upon his return home, when questioned about the Congress, said, "I will not confide them to you. I can only tell you that all this is very much more serious than you think. The conspiracy which is being woven is so well thought out, that it will be, so to speak, impossible for the monarchy and the church to escape it." He later denounced the Illuminati, and became a devout Catholic. Because of a movement begun by Dom's book upon the civil amelioration of the condition of the Jews in 1781, and a book by Mirabeau in London, a resolution was passed at the Congress to allow Jews into the lodges. It was obvious that it was done for financial reasons, because the Illuminati moved their headquarters to Frankfurt, Germany, a stronghold of Jewish finance. As the order spread throughout Germany, money was contributed from such leading Jewish families as the Oppenheimers, Wertheimers, Schusters, Speyers, Stearns, and of course, the Rothschild. Gerald B. Winrod wrote in his book Adam Weishaupt, A Human Devil that of the 39 chief sub-leaders of Weishaupt, 17 were Jews. Arguments that the Illuminati was solely of Jewish origin are completely unfounded. After the Congress of Wilhelmsbad, the Illuminati functioned under the following organizational structure: Nursery. 1. Preparation. 2. Novice. 3. Minerval. 4. Illuminatus. Symbolic. Masonry. 1. Apprentice. 2. Fellowcraft. 3. Master. Scotch. Masonry. 4. Illuminatus Major. Scotch Novice. 5. Illuminatus Dirigens. Scotch Knight. The Lesser Mysteries. 1. Presbyter, or priest. 2. Prince, or regent. The Greater Mysteries. 3. Magus. 4. Rex.